Hello. Thank you. So yeah, I tried to simplify that title a little bit, so traversing search results. I don't know if you've really thought about how to use sessions and transients together before, but we're going to go through an example here today. Tammy Hart, designer and developer, uptrending. Like everybody else here, we're hiring all positions. You can follow me on Twitter at Tammy Hart, and there'll be a link at the end to get the code that we're going to talk about today. So I had the same situation with a couple different clients. The first one was he delivered content, very specific kind of content, to a very specific audience that instead of it being abstract, like, oh, I saw your post on Twitter, or, people get to his site by searching on Google or, word of mouth. And when they get there, they're looking for an exact answer to a very precise question. So they'll perform a search to find that content. And they may get like 10 results back, or fewer actually. And there's lots of good content in all the results they get. So the client asked me if a user clicks on a post and then wants to go to the next post, what happens? And I said, well, chronologically, it just goes to the next post. He said, well, can't we just have them go to the next search result? Instead of having to go back, perform the search again, or relook, just have a button that says, next search result. So I said, I don't know. Let's look into that, and figured out a way. And of course, then I had another client that said, we want to be able to loop through all of the search results as if they were going through a gallery. And we're going to do a live preview of that today. So basically, what I needed to do is to store the search results. So have a way to store the search results so that we could use that information anywhere we were on the site. And then, of course, navigate through those. And that's what we're going to do today. The only thing that you'll need is a WordPress site with several posts, and then a plugin by Eric Mann called WP Session Manager Plugin. So the first thing that's happened here is we've come to a site and we've performed a search. And out of this site that only has 12 posts, we've returned 2, 4, 8, 9, and 11. Those are the posts that we got back in our search. So we need a way to use a function to return an array of post IDs so that we can use them to get permalink URLs or permalinks. So here's a nice little function, and I purposely highlighted this so that you just pay attention to the most important parts. We're going to use the loop comp search array, and we're going to give it a unique variable, or we've got a parameter here that's, we're going to give it something unique and say, if this transient with using this search hash variable exists, this unique transient, then if it doesn't exist, we're going to go through and create this data. And there's no line numbers. The posts, WP, get results, globals, those are, that is the query, the return query, let me stop. The requested posts that they got in the search. So then we're going to create an empty array, and that's the data that we want to store. We're going to loop through all of the posts and just add the post IDs to this array, because that's all we need to be able to then use get permalink later on. And then, of course, we're going to set that transient. We're going to make it last for about 10 minutes. And that's just, random, whatever your use case may be for using this example. And then, of course, we're going to return that search array. So, again, we've got this basic function. We give it a unique variable, and we get back our post arrays, post IDs, an array. So the thing is that we can do that one time in one place and every single time, but we need to be able to only get the specific user that's performing that search right then and there. We need to get that array of IDs. We're not going to store this, permanently. We're not going to use this for every single visitor of the site, just the specific person that's performing the search. So what we want to do is get the search string. We want to get a unique string that's unique only to that search, not just anybody that types in cats. It's unique to that specific person, that specific search. And then, of course, the post array. We want to put this in our pocket so that wherever we go in the site, we can use this information, and that's what we need a session for. So basically, we want to store 3 important things: the string that they use in the query, and then the hash that WordPress produces, because that's unique, and then the array of post IDs. So again, purposely highlighting just what we want to look at. Obviously, we're going to create our WP session instance, and then we're going to store the search string, the search hash, and the search array. And of course, you can see here on this 3rd line down the loop comp search array function that we created a few minutes ago. And that is what returning our post IDs. But this only needs to happen in one place, if we're on a search page. So we're going to check and see if we're not in the admin, if we are performing a search, and if there's a query bars hash. And then we're going to store this information. If we go anywhere else on the whole site, we want to dump this information. And the reason being is that once we have this option of finding the URL to the next search result or the previous search result, we don't need that information if they've just clicked on to read a post, not from a search, like from the home page or from an archive. So we want to dump that information once they leave. So again, we need 3 little pieces of information and just a few lines of code to get that to us. And we, of course, add this at pre-get post before anything happens on the page. So now we've arrived at post 8. Remember, we put in a search. We return posts 2, 4, 8, 9, and 11. And normally, chronologically, the next post would be 9, but the previous post would be 7. But since we want to traverse only the search results, we want to provide a link that goes to post 9, but it goes backwards to post 4. So we need to create a function that says, if we're going to go forward, return post 9, and if we're going backwards, previous, return post 4. So all we need to do is be able to go into that array and say, where are we currently within that array? What post ID within that array are we? And then how can we go forwards in that array or backwards in that array? So we're going to set up a few variables. Next key, we're going to set that to default of 0. And then get our search array, which is the thing that we stored in our session, so that as the user moves around the site, their specific unique information is stored in the session. And then we're going to say that the current key, we're going to search that array and find out where we are currently within that array. Then we're going to say if we want next, which is default, then we're going to just simply add 1 to the key. And of course, if we get to the end of that array and there is no next, then we want to revert to the first post. So we set the key to 0. And then likewise, if we're going backwards, we reduce the key by 1. And if that's, we already were on the very first post, then we can loop it to the end and get the last post ID. And then simply return the next ID in the array. If we go forward, return 9. And if we want to go backwards, return 4. Now, finally, we get to use all of our information that all of our functions that we've created. And I want to give a shout out to a few people. Zach Tolman for teaching me what a transient was years ago, Eric Mann for writing this great plugin, and also Cole from 10up that helped me with the logic of this. Because when I was reviewing my code for this talk, I thought, this is pretty simple, but I remember the frustration and the face desking I did to figure it out. And I hope that you can use this as an idea to make cool things. So finally, we're going to go ahead and get our URLs, produce the links, the previous and next links. And all we have to do is see if there's an ID returned, because if there isn't, it returns false. Our function returns false. So if they've created, if we have a next result, then we're going to get, or a previous result, we're going to get the previous URL simply with get permalink or the next URL, because our loopconf get next search result is returning a post ID. So we just pass that through get permalink and we get the URL. And if those don't exist, if we've just naturally, organically came to a post not through search, then we just use the built-in WordPress functions to get the next and previous URLs. Now, normally, there's a whole bunch of checks and balances that you would probably run this, but for the sake of brevity, in my code, I left a lot of that out. But basically, we can finally use that ID to return the previous and next links. So here's an example. This is the second client that needed this functionality. And if you go to any project, which is this custom post type, and see some artwork that he did for this project, if you click on one of these are actually attachments. So I set it up so that he could go in and he could upload all of his photos to the project, and then we output them automatically. And then if you click into one, it's just simply you're looking at the attachment page. And if you click next, you go to the next one within the same project. I don't know how well you can see my cursor, but if you pay attention up here, that's the name of the project, Game of Thrones. And then hidden underneath here, we have where we are within the project. Okay. But if you do a search, which he did some pre-filled out search strings for his visitors, well, let's try that again. Yay. Well, let's just do this. There we go. Okay. Well, wonderful examples. Not the ones I wanted. Character without an S. There we go. Yay. So he's done a lot of wonderful illustrations here, and these are all coming from different projects. So it doesn't, because it's a search, so it's searching all of his projects and returning only the attachments that have this string, this tag. But if you click into one of the characters, you can see that we're on the attachment page right now. This is loading the attachment.php template. But because I've stored the search string of character, I can manipulate the title of the page, and I'm also able to manipulate the next and post links to go within that project, or within those search results. Let's see if we can land on something iffy before iffy. There we go. So you can see the URL changed, the project URL. So we're on a completely different project, but we're still within our search results. And that's basically it. Thank you. Like I said, you can find the code.